But there was something that came up this weekend that is in its own self part. It is The Last Dance, and we are now on part 3 and 4 of The Last Dance that just came out this past weekend. And all of us here in this on the show, on this podcast, we are all fans of this documentary. We're all fans of basketball and sports in general, and we're all missing sports terribly. And so this is kind of filling in that need. And these past 2 episodes were mainly about, well, obviously they're about Michael Jordan, but they're mainly about Dennis Rodman, and they were about Phil Jackson, and they were about the Detroit Pistons, who are, in my estimation, one of the most overlooked teams in the history of the NBA. I was watching a documentary called Bad Boys. I think it was last night, and or the night before, I can't remember. But they were saying how the NBA was moving in a way where it was Magic and Larry, and they wanted to go right to Michael Jordan. That was the handoff. That was the baton being passed. And then this team called the Detroit Pistons that played literally rock'em sock'em football type basketball interrupted the party for 3 years. And for 5 years, they were probably one of the top 5 teams in the NBA, going to the finals 3 times and winning 2 NBA championships. And in that, we meet Dennis Rodman, who had his own story of fatherhood, had his own story of being parented or the lack of parenting, and then becoming an NBA champion, a Hall of Famer. So let's take a couple of minutes to talk about The Last Dance and some of your thoughts you got from watching episodes 3 and 4. So, gentlemen, jump on in. What were some of your thoughts?
Listen, man. Okay. So, guys. Okay. First of all, if you have,
we might have to mute him.
We might have to mute him. We'll see.
Said lots of reckless things last time. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right.
People, but that people were actually fans of. Before Adam says it, there are people who are out there actually on them streets.
And I
watched our clips, and they were like, we actually have like Team Adam fans now.
They're smoking the marijuana.
Hey, listen, they might be. They might be, but still, he has people who are on his side. So
legal.
So Adam, with that being said, go for it.
All right. Last week, I know I had a hot take on a bit of the LeBron and Jordan debate and stuff. And I have to say this because I did not watch Jordan growing up, because when I started to comb over the clips and stuff, it shows you a very select part. But in watching, I guess, a little more of the story, I did a little more homework on who Jordan is. And I have to say that I am more of a fan of Michael Jordan than I ever have been in my life. There's a lot about Jordan that I do not support. There's a lot about Jordan that I think is actually bad for basketball in terms of the culture surrounding it. And that's just my personal opinion in terms of when I look at trying to grow young men and young basketball players, young professional athletes, and the way that they're elevated in society and the role models that they inadvertently are just because they're really good at a game. But I have to say that that there is something about Michael Jordan that I did not recognize before that I recognize now, that I'm like, man, he is more like I've known that he is special, obviously, you know what I mean, in terms of the conversation of being the GOAT. But I'm looking at it now with different eyes because of this story of The Last Dance. And now that we talk about stuff like the Pistons and whatnot, I think like I'm trying to open my eyes to greatness, you know what I mean? And I think that like we have obviously the story of Jordan going on. We're watching greatness today with LeBron and with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and these things. But man, like I think culture may have missed a big portion of greatness with the Bad Boy Pistons, man. Like when you dig into that story, I'm like, dang, yo, these guys,
they were dirty.
They captured something in the game of that era and maximized it in a way that nobody was able to do. And I gotta say, man, I'm like, man, like, let's open our eyes to the greatness that's happening around us.
Bartholomew.
Yeah, you know what? What you were missing, Adam, what you could not recognize was exemplified in great light this past week, especially the episode regarding the Pistons. What I think, what will stop LBJ from ascending beyond Jordan, if that's still part of this conversation, is the resolve to win at all costs. And there is something that has to be said for the willpower. And the only person who I've ever seen it happen to other than MJ was Kobe, where I'm like, I will this ball in the net irregardless of what opposition is coming my way. And there's a certain type of person who's a little bit psychopathic who says, I'm going to be the one who's going to administer the pain. I'm like, whoa, bro, like that's like surgical. He's like, yo, it's my turn now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and he meant that with his chest. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, yo, I'm now going to be the person who is going to take over, and not just take over, but I'm going to use exactly what you did to me and do it to you, and you're not going to be able to stop that. And I think that's something that to be a champion so many times over, you have to overcome many physical obstacles, but I think more than even all of that, it's going to be a mental game of your stamina in terms of how badly do you want it and how badly can that desperation keep your mental focus at an acute level for you to succeed. The other thing I wanted to talk about also and to bring light to is the Dennis Rodman factor. I think in one of the first 2 minutes of the clip, he says, you know, everyone talks about MJ and Pippen. Do we win all the championships without me? And honestly, nah, you can't. And I never knew how methodical he was when he said, well, I studied everyone's position in the league, and I found out how the ball was going to fall and what motion, how do I let the ball touch my hand to flick it back up, to bring it back to me, to bring it higher than them. And you saw some of the clips where he was going up against people that were bigger than him, taller than him. Yeah, and he was just destroying because he was almost being scientific about it. You know what I mean? Like, he was just like, no, I know how this ball moves. I know how I can anticipate if someone's shooting a 2 versus a 3, a mid-range jumper or not, how it's going to go the other way. And I can beat the person there and get the rebound. So I think, you know, like there's so many aspects. We're going to see more of this, right? We're going to see where there's so many aspects to the special team dynamic that everyone had that whole idea. One last thing before I'm going to relinquish my time is, you know, when Jordan finally realized, I thought this was pretty great, when Jordan finally realized that I don't have to be the one with the ball for us to win, and he got it to Pax, and they started making the threes, and he's like, okay, now I got to focus my attention on the others because that's what the leadership requires. And he was a gruesome leader, and that's what I think makes him one of the greatest. I still stand by that.
So there's got to be a little bit of sociopath to be that kind of
100%. You think Muhammad Ali was not?
That was my word last week.
Yep. Yeah.
You got to be crazy.
Like,
that's true. So, Bart, I have a little pickle with a statement you just made. You said one of the greatest, not the greatest?
No, he's the greatest.
Listen,
here it goes again.
Listen,
the screen's gonna start
before
shaking.
The screen starts shaking.
All right, Steph.
Gets angry. Let's let the brand new father, Stephon Watson, have the floor. But protect your screens, everybody. If you're watching at home, you're not in an earthquake. Kareem just a little bit upset. Stephon, you got the floor.
I like what Bart said. Dennis recognized, he played a pivotal role in those championships. But I also loved Phil Jackson letting Dennis Rodman go to Vegas.
Load management.
And here's why. Let me tell you why. Because he recognized his team, and he recognized what everybody needed on their team. And Dennis needed to go to Vegas for a couple of days to do whatever Dennis Rodman did in Vegas. And I was thinking, I think I tweeted this, like, this is something that leaders and pastors could you could learn from that, right? Know who's on your team and know what they need to get the best out of them. Yeah. And then, you hear the story Michael tells of, Dennis comes back and he's running, they're doing the drill, we called them 360s when I was in high school. They're running the drill on Dennis, who just comes back from Vegas, Dennis Rodman style. And he's running as hard and everybody has to chase him. Dennis Rodman's crazy. But is he really that crazy? When you watch his talent, you see his talent, and then it makes me understand something about Dennis Rodman, that we might look at him and judge him based on all the antics, but at heart, this guy is probably smarter than a lot of people ever gave him credit for.
Yep.
And you hear that when he's talking about, like Bart just said, you hear that when he's talking about how he rebounds and things like that. This guy knows what he's doing, and he knows his ability, he knows his skill set, and he knows what he brings to the team, and that's just super cool. And I thought that was amazing, and it also pointed something out that Draymond Green, who's been talking a lot of nonsense the last couple of weeks, he
we
could
just turn
not
off his
handle
phone?
Dennis Rodman.
He's been trending on Twitter,
today.
though.
Pardon?
On Twitter.
So
He
let's
needs to be turned off.
I'm gonna
Draymond
pass
Green
it to Adam in a second.
is a bum.
But we gotta say this, right? Because I was thinking about this as I was setting my computer up today. That Draymond Green, he has been on record now. He's getting more attention now than he ever had as a player. Let's say that for one. All right, Hosky, you got next after this. There is no chance that Draymond Green did not change the game, because he forgets that there was a center at 6'5" with a gigantic afro who played on the 2004 world champion Detroit Pistons by the name of Benjamin Wallace.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And
My
Draymond Green is
guy.
talking like he is the first
yeah.
short center who played small ball.
Right.
He was shorter than Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace was.
Yo,
And he was
Tayshaun with the math.
and he was and Ben Wallace was a
What a
problem
beast.
for Shaquille O'Neal.
Yep.
Shaquille O'Neal, arguably one of the greatest top
The-
5 centers of all time.
That's
Ben
the
Wallace was a
close
problem for him.
Close second to the greatest of all time.
One of the greatest who got to bother Kareem. The idea that so I just want to put some dirt on Draymond's name. Just put your phone away. Don't go on podcasts anymore. You're ridiculous. Adam, go for it.
It's a bum.
My bad, guys. Sorry. I was gonna ask a question. I'm actually like Tim, if you want to jump in. I got a question for you guys after, but it's related to all this. But go for it, Tim.
Well, it's one of those things with Rodman. My first interaction with Rodman itself was, it's like crazy hair, shows up in a car with a wedding dress. It's one of those things that for me, Rodman was always a clown. It's just because I'm like, what is going on? But the thing that I've come to appreciate about him is that, this man's story is ridiculous. Also, he may be the most interesting character on that doc. Like, when you listen to him speak, it's one of those things where it's like, tell me more. It's like, can we just do a Dennis Rodman doc? It's one of those things that this man should have a spinoff.
Yep.
And then on top of that, it's also something that when I think about it, it's like the Bad Boys. It's like, this is one of those things, I would say the impact of MJ, especially for someone that didn't really grow up during the era of the Bad Boys, is that he overshadowed the fact that they were dominating the game for years. If you were to ask me before this documentary if Isaiah Thomas had a ring, I'd have been like, I don't know. I don't think so. And it's one of those things that they've been so overshadowed that it just adds some level of appreciation for them. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, I just love the fact that they even highlighted Rodman. I do think that he's one of the most, obviously he's somebody who we don't necessarily fully understand as an individual, but if you take away all the antics, and Stefan made light of that, if you take away all the antics, he was a genius at what he did. He was legitimately a genius, and Jordan actually even said it in the doc. He said that he's the smartest player that he ever played with, and that's big talks to say that you have a guy like Pippen, you have a guy, Steve Kerr is now one of the better coaches in the league. He was on that team. You know, I see Calvin saying he doesn't like Steve Kerr, and that's all good. I just think that Rodman is not often given credit where it's due. He is as well known to be, by a lot of the greats who's watched the game, will say that he's the best on the ball defender that ever played the game. That he could defend all 5 positions and lock down the person that he was going up against. Rodman is one of the most underrated guys. And you go back to the Bad Boys team, the Detroit Pistons that Chase was talking about, and then even the latter three of the championships by the Bulls. Those teams don't win those championships without Rodman. Rodman is a big part of what they were able to do, and I think that was definitely highlighted. Yes, Madonna corrupted him and allowed him to go to a different headspace and cocaine and whatever else was attached to that. But you take that away, the way that guy was able to live that life and then come on the court and just totally switch it on, like that's uncanny, like be able to have been able to do that the way he did it. So you got to give him the respect that he deserves and the dedication that he put towards it. It wasn't like he just did it and it came that way. He put the dedication towards that. The next thing I loved was seeing Phil Jackson, and again, agree with you, Stefan, that there's things that we can learn from Phil in terms of understanding personalities and how to kind of play, coach that up or lead that. And I think Phil, some people will say that Phil Jackson's not a great coach because he's always just had talent. But the fact that he had talent and personalities, what could be argued is he was a great coach because he was able to take all those that group of talent and those personalities and bring them together for greatness. And so for that, you saw firsthand some of that from
it takes talent to manage talent.
And so
that's the thing, and not to stomp on you, Kareem, but you look at who coached the Lakers before Phil got there, or look who coached them, when Phil left and then Phil came back, right? Same talent was there, but Phil was able to take them to that next level.
Talent,
the same thing with leadership, right?